Well, it's a pleasure to be interacting with people who are concerned with policy in their respective spheres. I was sent your background, and I found it's a very interesting background of people from different walks of life. And the age group is also, I suppose, up to 40 years. So 20 to 40 or something like that, I saw. Now, I had prepared a certain PowerPoint and all that, but after talking to your Vice Chancellor and knowing whatever little I do about your university and its efforts to influence the policy makers, I think I'll slightly tweak my presentation or whatever I'm going to talk. You see, we are going to talk about the strengthening government-police relations. Now, most of you identify police with government, but police is only one wing of the government, and it is placed under the control of the executive. The respective roles are very clear. The executive, and by executive I mean the political class and the bureaucracy. They are supposed to define the policy of the government. They are supposed to define the vision of the people in power. They are supposed to enact laws which would govern the country. That is their role. And the role of the police is within that framework of laws, within that framework of policies laid down by the government, they have to give security of life and property to the people within that framework. So the framework is defined by the government. You have to implement your charter within that framework, within that framework of laws. Now the government needs police, and the police must have a government to supervise. Why? Because government without the police would be ineffective. Nobody is going to listen to you unless the fear of the police is there, that yes, there is a body which is standing there to implement the laws, and if you violate them, you are going to be punished, you are going to be hauled up. So any government without the police would be ineffective, impotent. And police without a government can be brutal, can be oppressive, would be callous. So they have to be together, and they have to play a balancing role. They have to always be acting in harmony. But whether that harmony exists today in India, and if it does not exist, why does it not exist? This needs to be understood. And I'll have to tell you the historical background so that you understand why things are as you see them. You see, let us go back to 1857 when the revolt took place in India, and a revolt against the British rule here in India. The revolt was, of course, crushed. But after it was crushed, then government started wondering that they started toying with the idea of having an all India police which would be at their beck and call, which would carry out their orders, right or wrong, lawful or unlawful, and which would uphold the imperial interests of the British. They wanted such a police to be constituted. This is the background which led to the formulation of the Act of 1861. And if you go through the minutes preceding the formulation of this Act of 1861, you will find that there is a reference to having a police which will be politically useful. The emphasis was not on service to the people. The emphasis was on having a police which would be politically useful. That was the objective behind the framing of the Act of 1861. And therefore, the police was placed completely under the thumb of the executive, so that the executive orders, whatever they are, right or wrong, as I said, they are carried out by the police. That is how this act was formed. Now this arrangement continued in 1902-1903. There was another commission appointed by the British government. It is called Fraser Commission. The Fraser Commission found that, I think I have some quotes from the Fraser Commission. This I have already said. We'll deal with this later on. Yes, Police Commission of 1902. The police force is far from efficient. It is defective in training and organization. It is inadequately supervised. It is generally regarded as corrupt and oppressive, and it has utterly failed to secure the confidence and cordial cooperation of the people. Then in another paragraph it says the police throughout the country is in a most unsatisfactory condition, that abuses are common everywhere, that this involves great injury to the people and discredit to the government, and that radical reforms are urgently necessary. Now mind you, this was written in 1902-1903. If I had not told you that this was written in early 20th century, you could as well have said that probably it was written yesterday or maybe written 5-10 years back. So I mean, you get a terrible feeling that time has stood still for the police. And there has been no change in the working of the police since 1902, which is more than 100 years. Now it is a sad commentary on the kind of the police that we have, and it is a terrible commentary on our own government, which has kept it for more than 7 decades. Why they have kept it, I'll come to that gradually. Now there was no change. In 1902, these observations were made that radical reforms are necessary, but nobody was bothered about carrying out any reforms. The same police structure continued till the dawn of Indian independence. Now in 1950, your constitution is formulated and we become a republic. At that time, I think it was an occasion and an opportunity where the role of police in the context of independent India should have been redefined. But somehow it did not strike the founding fathers of the constitution. I would not blame them. They could not have foreseen that things would go so completely haywire in course of time. After a few decades, they probably thought, I'm inclined to take a sympathetic view of how they dealt with the matter. They would have thought that probably now that the country has become independent, the police officers would work for the people. They would be fired by a sense of idealism, and things would improve. That must have been their thought, and so they allowed the same arrangement to continue. And the constitution has, in the 7th schedule, they have a central list, they have a state list, and they have a concurrent list. And this 7th schedule was almost cut and paste from the Act of 1935. It was just cut and paste. There was hardly any change. It was kept in the state list. So the same arrangement which we inherited from the British, the same police act and the same police structure continued even after independence. Now for some years, for a few decades, it worked fine. Because the first generation of politicians that we had, and the first generation of policemen that we had, were men of principles. They were fired by idealism. कि हिंदुस्तान आज़ाद हो गया, अब हमें देश के लिए काम करना है. That sort of feeling was there. So things went on well for a few decades until the emergency hit us in 1975. Then suddenly we felt that no, something is seriously wrong, because people are being arrested left, right and center, not because they have committed a crime, but just because they belong to a different party. And all kinds of excesses were committed at the behest of the politicians. These were subsequently inquired by the Shah Commission, and as the Shah Commission in their report said that during the emergency, the police were used and they behaved in a manner as if they are not accountable. Accountability is very important. As if they are not accountable to anyone. They carried out wrong orders from the government. I was a young superintendent. I had just started service around that time. I was holding charge of a district, and I remember I was a member of the UP cadre. I remember from the state secretariat, we got a standardized FIR, you can say. You can't have a standardized FIR. Every FIR has to be different because case to case it's a different. But they send a standardized FIR. इसमें बाप का नाम भर दो, बाप का नाम भर दो, sex भर दो, age भर दो, बाकी उसको अंदर डाल दो. That was the kind of directions which came from the state capitals in different states, and people were put behind bars. I mean, as a young superintendent, I felt very bad about it, but it was an order from the state headquarters. I had no option. So, I mean, my instructions to the policemen were कि तुम सबके घर जाओ, उनको सल्यूट करो, हाथ जोड़ो कि सर मुझे ये हुक्म आया है इसलिए हम आपको गिरफ्तार कर रहे हैं, हमें आपसे कोई शिकायत नहीं. So, at least in my district, all the people who were arrested, they had no ill will for the police. They knew that all these are political directions from the top, and this police at the ground level is complying with those orders. So subsequently, I mean, as I said, Shah Commission inquired into these excesses, and they exposed the misdeeds of the government, and they recorded what they said, what they found, the helplessness of the officers at the ground level, and their compulsions in carrying out certain orders with which they themselves were not convinced. But nevertheless, they said that मेरा briefcase आया कि नहीं? जरा दीजिएगा. I would like to read just one or two paragraphs from the Shah Commission report. The Commission invites the government's attention pointedly to the manner in which the police was used and allowed themselves to be used for purposes, some of which were, to say the least, questionable. Some police officers behaved as though they are not accountable at all to any public authority. The decision to arrest and release certain persons were entirely on political considerations, which were intended to be favorable to the ruling party. Employing the police to the advantage of any political party is a sure source of subverting the rule of law. The government must consider, now I want you to note this very carefully, the government must seriously consider the feasibility and the desirability of insulating the police from the politics of the country. Insulating the police from the politics of the country and employing it scrupulously on duties for which alone it is by law intended. Then towards the end they say that if a recurrence of this type of subversion is to be prevented, the system must be overhauled with a view to strengthen it in a manner that the functionaries working in the system do so in an atmosphere free from the fear of consequences of their lawful actions. I repeat this, free from the fear of consequences of their lawful actions, and in a spirit calculated to promote the integrity and welfare of the nation and the rule of law. Now, this was the finding of the Shah Commission, but the Shah Commission report was not accepted by the government, because by the time these things, the Shah Commission report came out, there was again a change of government. Indira Gandhi was back in power. So these recommendations, the Shah Commission report was just ignored. Subsequently, then, during the Janata Party, while the Janata Party was in power, the National Police Commission was constituted. National Police was constituted because at that time it was, as they recorded, that during the intervening years since independence, there have been social and economic changes which necessitate that the role and functions of the police be redefined. So in 1977, they constituted a National Police Commission, which submitted 8 volume reports between 1977 79 to 81. Now these reports are very comprehensive and they cover almost the entire aspect of police functioning. Go next. Yes, this is the National Commission. They came to the conclusion that there has been no comprehensive review at the national level of the police system after independence, despite radical changes in the political, social, and economic situation in the country. Its chairman was Dharamveera. Next. There were several other commissions also in between, but if you go through these various commission reports, all of them emphasize one point. That one point is insulation of police from the politics of the country, insulating the police from any kind of outside influence. That is one point common, which it's a common thread which runs through all the commission reports. Now, while entertaining these commission reports, the government, while they implemented certain recommendations which amounted to making cosmetic improvements in the police, like increasing the manpower, giving more vehicles, giving more laboratories, these were elementary demands which they would concede. But the vital point of insulating the police from outside pressures, that was never conceded by any state government. And this arrangement continued. Then after I told you about the emergency. Then you had, in 1984, you had anti-Sikh riots in Delhi and the neighboring states. And during those riots, you are well aware, I need hardly tell you, that the police remained a silent spectator to the carnage, to the killings, to all the mayhem, to all the burning, the loot, the rampage. The police remained a spectator because, why? Because all this was being done by members of, or followers of, or people supported by the ruling party. So they said, when the ruling party is involved in all this, how do we take action against them? And if we take action against them, probably the government, the executive will take action against us. So they allowed the hooligans to run riot. And about 3,006 were killed in the process. And that again demonstrated that there's something seriously wrong with the working of the police. And the police, again, it must be insulated from the political pressures of the ruling dispensation. Now, these things continued, and as I said, various commissions said about insulation. They talked of an officer being able to work without fear or favor of the consequences of his lawful actions. But in practice, it never worked. In practice, it never worked. I'll give you one small example from my career. I was DIG Meerut in 1977-78, this very area contiguous to you. And I was handpicked by Chaudhry Charan Singh, who was the Home Minister of India, because he was told by the Commissioner of Police, a man of great integrity, whom Chaudhry Charan Singh trusted, that if you want the police to have a good image, you make Prakash Singh DIG Meerut. I had just been promoted to a DIG, and Meerut was a senior charge, so I should not have been posted there. But they said, no, even if he has just been promoted, because he is highly spoken of, we'll post him as DIG Meerut. I got posted as DIG Meerut. And knowing Charan Singh as I did, he was a man of great integrity, and he wanted the corrupt elements to be hammered and taken action against. So I worked with a crusading spirit. कि भाई ठीक है, अब तो हमको तो छूट मिल गई, होम मिनिस्टर ने हमको हैंड पिक किया है, और he is a man of great integrity. So I said, no, I'll now go full steam against the corrupt elements. Now, in going full steam against corrupt elements, those days what had happened, something which I had not taken cognizance of, though I was aware of, a whole lot of Jat officers from different parts of UP had manipulated their postings to the Meerut region. भाई अब तो जाट होम मिनिस्टर है, चलो अपने इलाके में चलो और ठाट से नौकरी करो. And I had developed a peculiar practice that whichever area I got maximum complaints from, I would make a surprise visit to that place without any prior notice, so that before the local SHO or the local police gets the time to tutor witnesses, I'm there at the scene. I have seen things for myself, come to my own conclusions. In the process, the local police would be exposed, and I took action against several station officers. They were either transferred to police lines or suspended or removed from charge. And it was almost a massacre of the corrupt elements. Now, I never bothered, I was very young at that time, I never bothered to inquire into the caste of a person. For me, it was either you are good and honest or you are corrupt and bad for the society. That was the only distinction for me. As it turned out, most of them belonged to one community. Now these people, they conspired against me कि प्रकाश सिंह तो एक ऐसा DIG आ गया जो काम करने नहीं दे रहा. ये तो टाइम था कि जब जाट की हुकूमत है तो जब हम लूट पाट करके पैसे बनाएं, खूब खाएं कमाएं, और ये आदमी हमारे रास्ते में रोड़ा बन गया है. So they all combined, they went to the चौधरी's wife, गायत्री देवी, उनका साहब ये कहाँ एंटी जाट आदमी आपने भेज दिया, ये तो हमें नौकरी नहीं करने दे रहा है. And now Chaudhary Charan Singh was a man of great integrity, a man of high principles, but he was very gullible. कान के कच्चे थे. उनको कहा गया तो उनका, अरे ये एंटी जाट आदमी कैसे आ गया. So one day I suddenly get a call. I was in Muzaffarnagar. I suddenly get a call that Prakash Singh, bhai, aap chale aaiye Delhi, Home Minister wants to see you. So I left my work as it is and I drove to North Block. I was marched into the Home Minister's room. I found the Home Minister angry. मतलब उनका चेहरे गुस्से से लाल हो गया था. उनका रंग गोरा नहीं था पर गुस्से से तमतमाए हुए थे. And he started firing me without even listening to me. He just started firing me. I knew what had gone wrong. But I stood my ground. I kept on defending myself. नहीं सर, ये इसके बारे में ये शिकायतें थी, इसलिए मैंने हटाया, इसके बारे में ये शिकायतें थी. He saw that this man, instead of listening to me, he is arguing back. And politicians at that level are not prepared to be answered back. He said, he kept on shouting at me, and then I thought there's no point in conveying my arguments. I saluted him and walked out of the room. And I drove back to Meerut. Before I reached Meerut, my transfer orders are issued. Because the Chief Minister of UP was a protege of Charan Singh. He wanted to rule UP by proxy, so he had made Ram Naresh Yadav, a briefless lawyer, as the Chief Minister of the state. Nobody knew him. And he got orders to transfer him. If the story had ended there, I would not have bothered. He also said that Prakash Singh should be placed under suspension. Now, the sequence of events are very interesting now. Orders are received, Ram Naresh Yadav gets, and he calls the Chief Secretary and the Home Secretary कि प्रकाश सिंह को suspend कर दीजिए. Those days, I would say the bureaucrats had more spine than they have today. So, so they said, sir, suspend तो हम कर देंगे, आपके हुक्म का पालन होगा, परंतु सस्पेंशन के कुछ नियम होते हैं. नियम यह है कि there should be preliminary inquiry and prima facie charges should be made, then you are placed under suspension. आजकल तो खैर ऐसे अनाप शनाप सस्पेंड हो जाते हैं. मायावती तो शक्ल देख के सस्पेंड कर देती थी, वो चार्ज वार्ज की कोई बात नहीं. तो उन्होंने कहा कि बट वी नीड टू होल्ड एन इंक्वायरी बिफोर यू सस्पेंड हिम. तो रामनरेश यादव हैड ए paper in his pocket which he produced, paper drafted by the disgruntled sub-inspectors of Meerut range, gave him कि ये शिकायतें हैं. They read the complaint and they knew that it was fictitious, but anyway, they said this will need to be inquired into. Chief Minister was worried. He had to report compliance to the Home Minister of India. और ये कह रहे हैं कि अभी हमें इंक्वायरी करनी है. यानी इंक्वायरी आप एक हफ्ते में ख़त्म करिए. इंक्वायरीज नॉर्मली टेक मंथ्स. क्या इंक्वायरी एक हफ्ते में ख़त्म करिए. तो they agreed, all right sir, we'll complete the inquiry within 1 month. Within a week, the anti-corruption branch was called and they said इसकी इंक्वायरी एक हफ्ते में ख़त्म करिए. So as I and my wife were sitting in Meerut one day, on the stairs outside our bungalow. Suddenly I find a superintendent of police walking in very sheepishly. Sir, I'm sorry sir, but we have to conduct an inquiry against you. मैंने कहा हाँ भाई ठीक है अपना काम करो, तुमको जिम्मेदारी दी गई है अपना काम करो. तो खैर he conducted the inquiry, submitted a report within 1 week. Absolutely clean, nothing, all fictitious, all wild allegations. Now the dilemma before the state government was what to do with Prakash Singh. No, I think their dilemma was resolved by the gods. I was nominated for a course in the Administrative Staff College, Australia, and in government, sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So this was coming from central government. Of course, it was routed through the Home Department government of UP, but this particular branch of the Home Department did not coordinate with the branch which was planning my suspension. So they sent the letter to me, said, you have been nominated on this date, you should proceed, and blah, 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 your visa, this, that. I just quietly left for Australia for 2 months. And by the time I came back, things had cooled down. So I would say the gods saved me from suspension, which would have been an totally 100% wrong administrative measure on the part of the government. But why I mentioned this incident, it shows how you are working within the framework of law. You are working with the cleanest of intentions, and yet you find yourself caught in a situation where you are being punished by the executive for absolutely no fault of yours. So, freedom from fear of the consequences of any lawful action, it is all easily said, but it does not obtain on the ground. Another small instance, I was DGP Assam. I had been sent on a special assignment because Assam was not my cadre, but they said they wanted to hold the elections in Assam, and ULFA, the United Liberation Front of Assam, had said that we will not allow elections to be held. So they wanted somebody to, government felt that an Assam police officer will not be able to take strong action against ULFA. They should import an officer from outside. I was serving in Punjab for 4 years. I'd done 4 years in Punjab battling against terrorism. So they said, ये आदमी 4 साल पंजाब में आतंकवाद से लड़ चुका, अब इसको भेजो, बहुत हो गया. तो इसको आसाम भेज दो. इसने यहाँ जब टेररिज्म से लड़ लिया तो उल्फा से भी लड़ लेगा. So I was sent to Assam. So fortunately, by God's grace, I would say, elections were held. Not a shot had to be fired. ULFA were kept under tremendous pressure. And they could not disrupt the elections. Elections were held. But after the elections were held, a popular government was formed. And the popular government, the chief minister was one Hiteshwar Saikia. People from Assam would know. One of the cleverest chief ministers that I have worked under in my entire service. He would say one thing, he would mean something else, and he would do something else. मेरे समझ भी नहीं आता था ये कैसा चीफ मिनिस्टर है भाई, इसकी बात का क्या विश्वास करें हम. बात कुछ करता है, कहता कुछ है, करता कुछ है. He will be very sweet while talking to you. नहीं आप ठीक है सिंह साहब, ये है फलाना ठिकाना, और जाके वो काम करेगा जो मुझे नहीं पसंद. See, they were ULFA detainees. The Assam police had detained about 300 ULFA workers over a period of time. Now this man decided, I think there was some secret understanding between him and ULFA, about which I learnt only subsequently. There was some secret understanding, तुम हमको election में जीत जाने दो, हम तुम्हारे आदमियों को छोड़ देंगे. So without consulting the DGP of the state, he in 2 installments released all the ULFA detainees. I went and had an argument with him. Sir, how can you do that? You have not consulted me. Assam police has taken months and maybe years to arrest them. And tomorrow if these people start creating situation, kidnapping people, killing people, who will be answerable for that? And then we'll again have to start from the scratch in arresting A, B, C and D. It has taken us years to arrest these people. He did not like my argument. Then I found now he started interfering in the posting of station house officer. कि गुवाहाटी कोतवाली में फलाना आदमी पोस्ट होगा, इस कोतवाली में फलाना आदमी पोस्ट होगा. I said, what is this? आप बिना हमसे पूछे आप उल्फा के आदमी छोड़ देते हैं, आप बिना हमसे पूछे कोतवाली में पोस्टिंग कर रहे हैं. I said, look, either you allow me to function, because I am not prepared to be a decorative Director General of Police. If I am Director General of Police, I shall assert my authority. No. I said, then I came back, I wrote a letter that, look, under these circumstances, I am not prepared to function as Director General Police. I may be relieved of my charge. उन्होंने भी कहा चलो इस आदमी से छुट्टी हुई. But instead of me having to throw him out, he has said that I may be relieved of my charge. I kicked the post of a DGP. I said, I am not prepared to work. I am not prepared to be a decorative. As long as I am on the throne, why should I care what's happening to the state or what's happening to the people? No. So I wrote a letter in writing that I may be relieved. They were happy to. So again, here is a situation where you should be able to run your department. You should be insulated from outside pressures so that you decide. As a captain of a team, you want to decide who will play left out and who will play right out, who will play center forward. You don't want somebody else to pick up the team and then decide the placement also and then expect the captain to win the battle or win the match. That's not on. So this is how things happen in practice. I've given you just two examples of how things operate at the ground level as different from what we are taught to us in the academy and what we try to do. There are a whole lot of officers who prefer to swim with the current. वो कहते हैं अफसर अब जब नेता ही गलत चाहता है तो हमें क्या परवाह पड़ी है. But there is a percentage of conscientious officers who want to stick to the letter of the law and who want to act as per the law of the land, for which they get punished, for which they get sidelined, for which they get dumped here and there, for which they at times get suspended. All that happens. So that is the frame. That is what is happening today. As different from the policy as it should be, I have told you, and the policy as it is today. There's a huge difference between that. Now, these examples apart, how much time I have? नहीं कितने बजे तक बता दीजिए? 1 बजे तक, ठीक. But you need some question answer time also. Okay. So I should give you at least half an hour. No, in 1996, 94 I retired. And then I started thinking, ठीक है तुम्हारी नौकरी तो कट गई किसी तरह से. Afterwards also I had very traumatic experience as DGP UP. I was thrown out as DGP UP even though the government was tom-tomming its achievements on the law and order front. Kalyan Singh used to say कि हमने उत्तर प्रदेश में दंगा रहित प्रदेश भय मुक्त समाज स्थापित किया है. अरे किसके बूते पे किया है? हमारे बूते पे किया था. And this is what his critics said. पर जिसके बूते पे तुमने दंगा रहित प्रदेश स्थापित किया, जिसके बूते पे तुमने भय मुक्त समाज स्थापित किया, उस आदमी को तुम आज निकाल रहे हो. That's a long story. I don't want to inflict another story on you, but that story also illustrates where you are performing at your peak. You are lauded by the people. You are a darling of the force. And yet you are thrown out. Why? Because political differences. Politically, I became inconvenient for the government. Why? That's a long story. I won't have the time to go into that. So, as DGP UP, then I said, once they kicked me out, I said, I am not going to serve in the Indian police now. I'm going on leave and I'll be sending my resignation. I had another year left, but I said, I'm not going to serve. But then again, the gods had a different plan for me. I went on leave, I hibernated, no contact with the outside world. Then in between what happened, the Babri Masjid gets demolished, UP is on fire, communal riots all over the state. The state is in turmoil, state government is dismissed, president's rule is imposed. Center says, no, we need a strong DG to control law and order in UP. Prakash Singh is brought back. So that's how, ultimately I had a good ending as a police officer. Then I went to BSF but the point is how, even while following trying to implement the rule of law, even while acting very conscientiously, even while acting in the best interest of the people, you find yourself in the dock. You find yourself being harassed, punished. But if you hold your ground, this is what I tell IPS probationers. If you stick to your principles, ultimately, I think there is some invisible force, call it by whatever name you like. There is some invisible force which comes to help you. Even if you don't have a godfather, I had none. There's some invisible force which comes to help you and rescue you and boost you back to the position which you deserve. Coming back to the point, in 1996, 2 years after for 1 year I kept on thinking, okay, what should I be doing after retirement? I said, look, I have done 35 years in police, and there's something basically wrong with the police. That has to be rectified. So many others had also thought likewise, but nobody thought of sort of doing, now what should I do? I went through all the commission reports, which I showed you here. And then I said, no, at the state level, I have already tried whatever best I could. The only option now left is Supreme Court. So I drafted a petition. Then I had problem. I said I should get an advocate who will not charge any fees. क्योंकि वकील को फीस देना पड़ा तो मेरा घर बिक जाएगा और उसके बाद भी नहीं पैसा होगा बचेगा. So ultimately I found an advocate who said, it took me some time. Firstly he said, नहीं पुलिस का कोई केस हम नहीं करेंगे, पुलिस तो खराब है, बदमाश है, ब्रूटल है, ये है, जाति करती है, पैसे लेती फलाने. I had a long session with him, in fact 2 or 3 sessions, to convince him why police is like that. Police is forced to become like that. You don't let it function and then you start blaming the police. So once he was convinced, he took up the case, and then in 1996 I filed a public interest litigation before the Supreme Court. It dragged on for 10 years. 10 years, in the initial years my colleagues were very happy by saying, Prakash, ye kya ho raha hai isme, kya progress kya ho rahi hai. After 3-4 years they said, kuch nahi hona hai, ye Prakash Singh is wasting his breath, ye diwal se sir takra raha hai, kuch nahi hona hai. But my problem was that once I have taken up a case, I won't give it up. I won't give it up once I am convinced about its need, about its urgency, about its legitimacy, then there is no question of giving up. So I persevered, and it was almost a one-man fight against the system. After 10 years, there was a historic judgment by the Supreme Court in 2006. Very briefly, आगे बढ़ा दीजिए जरा, काफ़ी आगे और आगे, हाँ. They decided to make, they ordered 3 institutional changes. One, State Security Commission. I'll be very brief. Sorry, we're running out of time. They decided on 3 institutional changes. State Security Commission. The objective of this commission was to insulate police from outside pressures, about which I have been talking. The second body was Police Establishment Board. Go ahead. Just wait. Functioning, it will laying down broad policies, giving directions to the performance and preventive tasks of police, evaluating performance of the state police. These were the functions. Aage badhiye. Then there was another body called Police Establishment Board. This was to give functional autonomy, autonomy to the police in personnel matters, in matters of postings and transfers. As I said, the captain should have the liberty to choose his team. So up to the rank of Deputy SP, it was laid down that the departmental officers will have full liberty in choosing the officers, and there will be no political interference. And beyond Deputy SP, SP and above, it was said that the Police Establishment Board, which would comprise 4 senior police officers, they will make recommendations to the state government, and the state government would give due weightage to those recommendations. And if they disagreed, they will record their reasons and then make different postings. So it was given some kind of control over personnel matters. The third was, now this concerns accountability, which is your subject today. You see, to enhance the accountability of the police, see, while giving a certain measure of autonomy, we also decided on accountability. Accountability mechanisms were strengthened. There were 2 accountability bodies, one at the state level and one at the district level. आगे बढ़िए जरा. State level complaints authority. This was to be both at the state level as well as the district level. The bodies were to be headed by. इसका printout ले लीजिएगा, कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. There's nothing secret. In fact, I want these things to be disseminated as much as possible. So, state level complaints authority, district level complaints authority, both would be headed by judicial officers. At the state level, it would be by a retired judge of the High Court or Supreme Court, and at the district level by a retired district and sessions judge. Then it will include some other independent members, and they will inquire into cases of serious misconduct against police officers. The state level authority will inquire into complaints against officers of the rank of SP and above, and at the district level against junior officers. So accountability mechanisms were strengthened by the by the Supreme Court directions, and at the same time a certain measure of autonomy was given. How? By giving them control in matters of postings and transfers. There was some other autonomous measures also. This is about district level complaint. आगे बढ़िए. Selection of DGP. You see, either to how was the selection of DGP done? Say I am the Chief Minister of the state, right? These 4 people are eligible to be promoted. I will decide कि कौन सबसे ज़्यादा चमचागिरी हमारी करेगा. मैं कहूँगा दिन को कहूँगा रात है तो कहो यस सर बिल्कुल देखिए चंद्रमा ऊपर दिख रहा है. तो 4 में इन्होंने कहा तो मैंने उनको DGP बना दिया. I said no, this will not work. This will not work. So we prescribed a procedure, and that was approved by the Supreme Court, that the state government would prepare a panel of officers eligible to be promoted. That panel will be sent to the UPSC, and then the UPSC will select 3 out of them, the best 3 officers. And then that list of 3 will be given to the Chief Minister कि अब आपको इसी में से select करना है. आप इसके बाहर नहीं जा सकते. Now let us assume that these 3 are in the range of say 80%, 85%, 90%. So the calculation was that even if he selects the 80%, even he will deliver. Problem happens when he selects somebody of 40%. So that was eliminated. 3 top officers were selected by UPSC. As I said, they were in the range of say 80%, 85%, 90%. So whichever the Chief Minister selects, it was felt that he would still deliver. And because you could not deprive the Chief Minister of his privilege of selecting the DGP. So you have the privilege of selecting the DGP, but we restrict the area of your choice. You can't select a stooge or a chamcha. You can't go down 3 batches and select नहीं इसमें हमारा ये हमारी जात का इसको बना दो. ये क्या बात है? और ऐसे होता है. So the selection of DGP was also ensured that only a good officer gets selected as DGP, and once he's selected, he is given a tenure of 2 years, unless he does something seriously wrong, in which case he can be removed also. But he is given a tenure of 2 years, and not only he, but all other officers holding field assignments. आगे बढ़िए. Security of tenure. These are DGP of the state, IG zone, DIG range, SP in charge district, SHO. They all have security of 2-year tenure. आगे बढ़िए. चलिए. However, they may be removed under certain conditions. आगे बढ़िए. So this was the 4th direction. The 5th one was about separation of investigation from law and order. This was done because, you see, at present the investigation work and the law and order work both were done by the same staff. We said that to improve the quality of investigation, you should have dedicated investigators. They should not be sucked into law and order duties, so that they devote their 24 hours, 24/7 they are working in the investigation of cases also. And we said that this should be done to start with in the metropolitan towns. Okay, next. Then for the center, they said that there should be a National Security Commission. Don't bother about that. Next, go ahead. States' response, there will be partial compliance. And what the states have done, you see, the Supreme Court judgment contained a proviso that these directions, these orders will hold good till such time as the center or the states pass their own act on the subject. Now, why did they have to write that? Because the Supreme Court can fill a legislative vacuum. They cannot legislate. So they said that once a legislation is passed, these directions will not hold good, will cease to be operative. You get my point? These directions will hold good till such time as the center or the states pass their own act on the subject. So what some states did, they picked on this particular clause and they hurriedly passed laws which amounted to giving legal cover to the existing arrangement. You get my point? How clever and crooked they were. Instead of implementing the directions of the Supreme Court, उनका जो व्यवस्था वर्तमान है उसको कानूनी जामा पहना दो, बात हुई ख़त्म. उसके बाद सुप्रीम कोर्ट से कह दो कि साहब आपने कहा था जब हम कानून बना देंगे तो आपका डायरेक्शन नहीं लागू होगा, तब आपका कानून अब नहीं लागू होगा, अब आप जाइए. So this is what 17 states have done. I have challenged the constitutionality of these acts. Mr. Harish Salve is the advocate, but now he has lost his zeal and enthusiasm for the case, so it is still pending. Not that I didn't pay him a paisa, of course. And Harish Salve तो पता नहीं कितने 50 लाख 60 लाख लेते हैं या 1 करोड़ लेते हैं, I don't know. उतना मेरे पास है भी नहीं. तो but anyway, the constitutionality of these acts has been challenged by me, and the other states have passed executive orders. They have not passed law, they have passed executive orders purportedly in compliance of Supreme Court directions, but if you analyze deeply, you find they go against the letter and the spirit of Supreme Court's directions. आगे बढ़िए. These are the states which have enacted laws. आगे बढ़िए. Government छोड़िए, आगे बढ़िए. In 2008, there was a Justice Thomas committee appointed. When the Supreme Court discussions were going on, and I would kept on hammering at the Supreme Court कि साहब ये लोग लागू नहीं कर रहे हैं. So they would not believe me. They appointed a committee headed by Justice Thomas to go into the question of compliance. And Justice Thomas committee found that, आगे बढ़िए, they were dismayed by the no state has fully complied with the directives in letter and spirit, and there is total indifference to the issue of reforms. This is what Justice Thomas committee found. आगे बढ़िए. Then there was 2012, there was a Justice Verma committee. This was actually appointed in the wake of Nirbhaya incident, and the objective of the committee was to bring about amendments in the criminal law with a view to ensuring speedy justice in cases of offences against women. But Justice Verma was committed, totally committed to police reforms, and he devoted one full chapter of 28 pages to police reforms. And in that he has said, this is what he has said: we believe that if the Supreme Court's directions in Prakash Singh are implemented, what he means is Prakash Singh's case are implemented, there will be a crucial modernization of the police, this. आगे बढ़िए. But even government chose to ignore Thomas committee, government chose to ignore Justice Verma committee, and the latest position is that there are certain states which have passed executive orders, then there are 17 states which have passed laws, but they all go against the letter and the spirit of Supreme Court's directions. आगे बढ़िए. Now implementation of Supreme Court directions, as I have said, will have the effect of upholding the rule of law. Upholding the rule of law, insulating police from extraneous pressures, protecting human rights, improving governance, and as I have said, balancing autonomy and accountability, which is the theme of your topic today. See, if you go through the Supreme Court directions, the direction about State Security Commission, it gives insulation. The direction about Police Establishment Board, it gives you authority to post and transfer. It gives you autonomy. Then again, complaints authorities, that ensures accountability. Then posting of DGP, that again gives you a certain measure of autonomy, that only good officers will be posted. Then giving them two-year tenure, that again means a certain measure of autonomy, that you will not be transferred out or just shunted out on flimsy grounds. You are given a 2-year tenure, and if you are not satisfied with the transfer, there's a whole lot of inspectors who have gone to court and got redress. Okay, no, you can't remove me from the court. Court has come to their rescue. So they have. So that way, you see, the Supreme Court directions, in fact, if those are implemented, there is a fair measure of autonomy given to the police in the Supreme Court directions, and accountability is enforced by having state accountability commissions and by having district level accountability commissions or complaints authorities, as they say. It's a balance between autonomy and accountability, the Supreme Court's directions. Next. Now, these are some other measures. I'll just run through the slides. I won't go into great detail. See, there are huge requirements, shortage of manpower. About the total police per lakh population is, you should have 192 men on ground, but you have actually 150. Then the state police strength, that is you have more than 500,000 vacancies. 21, these are, to strengthen if you strengthen the police, you will be strengthening the government also. If the police is not able to perform up to a certain level, it's because of these other deficiencies also. Manpower, or now there's woman power also, so I should be using the word human resource. Chaliye, aage badhiye. Infrastructure, transport is inadequate. Communications, you'll be surprised, there are even today police stations which are without wireless, without mobile, without connectivity. Forensic laboratories are inadequate. At any given point of time, 4 to 5 lakh forensic exhibits are lying unattended, unexamined across the country. We need many more forensic laboratories. Then housing satisfaction is only 41%. Housing satisfaction, I am referring to housing satisfaction of subordinate staff, the non-gazetted staff. It should be 100% as per the National Police Commission recommendation. So these are infrastructural deficiencies which prevent us from functioning ineffectively. Other matters, I won't go into details. Working hours, 16 to 17 hours. Training is inadequate. Then the police workload. We not only do our own work, we find that a whole lot of other departments, they can't function without our assistance. Income tax wants to go for a raid, they said, bhaiya tum bhi chalo, nahi to hum pit jayenge. Demolition squad jata hai कि bhai police chalo, nahi to hum pit jayenge. तो मतलब कोई दूसरा विभाग काम करने के लिए एक्साइज डिपार्टमेंट वाले नहीं, पुलिस की मदद चाहिए. जहाँ कहीं हो वहाँ पुलिस की मदद चाहिए. So police workload has to be reduced. Modernization has not kept pace with the developments. Registration of cases, leaves must to be desired. Then commissionerate system needs to be expanded to more cities, and police should be brought in the concurrent list. You see, the state chief ministers treat this as some kind of a force at their disposal to further their political objectives and political agenda. It should be brought in the concurrent list so that the center has also a say in the matter, and because some states behave as if they threaten to be independent of the center, or take a line which is completely independent of the center. I think the center should have a say in police matters. So what is the relevance and the urgency of this? You see, survival of democracy. I have said this in several articles, and I have tweeted this several times, that if we do not carry out police reforms, you will see the end of democracy in this country. One day. You see, already I think 43%, that is according to ADR, that is the percentage of people with a criminal background sitting in the parliaments. Now, and mind you, this graph is steadily growing up from 21, 30, 21 to 25, 30, 35, 43, it has come down to. Now, the day it crosses 45, the day it crosses 50, I think we are done. What do you expect from people with such a criminal background sitting in the parliament? You think, whatever the tears they shed for garibi hatao, it's all crocodile tears. बस वो इतना काम करते हैं कि कहने को रह जाए कि हाँ भाई हमने ये काम कर दिया, और बाकी तो उनके धंधे चलते रहेंगे. So this is as I said, for the survival of democracy, you need changes in the police. Then sustaining the momentum of economic progress. You see, you will have, unless you have good law and order, how can you have economic progress? Tell me. Tomorrow, what happened in Haryana? You're sitting in Haryana. I conducted inquiry into the Haryana agitation, reservation agitation, and I found that 20,000 crore worth of property was destroyed in this state. 20,000 crore, imagine. You were pushed back by how many? At least 10-15 years? In my inquiry report, I indicted about 60 officers. 2/3 were policemen and 1/3 were revenue officers. On my recommendation, then the principal secretary home was removed, the chief secretary was, the DGP was removed. But बाद में सबने अपने घोड़े दौड़ाना शुरू कर दिए, political godfathers ये वो कर करा के बहुत सारा dilute हो गया. So, in the state of Haryana, you have seen how economic development can be jeopardized by, and in fact, one of the Tribune paper which is published from Chandigarh, they said that Even if the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed were given a free run of the country, they would not have been able to inflict so much of economic damage as those agitators did to Haryana's economy. Then combating terrorism, insurgency, organized crime. These are major problems that we are facing, but we are not able to deal effectively with these problems because we don't have a professional, modern police force. You still have a colonial police handed over to you by the Britishers and being continued by the state chief ministers in a new garb, under legislations which they have passed, under executive orders which they have enacted. So you need a progressive modern police for this country, which we don't have. And I find it very ironic. On the one hand, you are today sending Chandrayaan. एक तरफ तो आप चंद्रमा में जा रहे हैं और दूसरी तरफ आप पाताल लोक में बैठे हुए हैं और कॉलोनियल टाइम्स में बैठे हुए हैं. I mean, what a contradiction. अभी आपकी वो बैलगाड़ी चल रही है और उधर वो रॉकेट जा रहा है, चंद्रमा पे जा रहा है. भाई कुछ तो तालमेल रखो. On the one hand, you are having a bullet train or you are having modern airports and this and that, but if you go to a police station, आपको लगेगा कि you have come to some police structure of Aurangzeb's time. वहाँ मुंशी जी बैठे हैं, वो उस पुराने ज़माने में डेस्क होती थी ना, ये ऐसे यहाँ पे ऊंचा है, फिर ऐसे यो स्लाइडिंग है, उस पर मुंशी जी बैठे, यहाँ से कलम निकाला, यहाँ लिखना शुरू किया. I mean, I have seen days when they would not have stationery. अब तो खैर स्टेशनरी मिल जाती है, उनका कागज़ नहीं है. गाड़ी है तो पेट्रोल नहीं है, टेलीफोन है तो बिल नहीं पे हुआ तो टेलीफोन कट गया है. मतलब इस तरह की हालत थी. खैर अब धीरे धीरे पैसा तो आ रहा है, पर पैसा इज़ नॉट एनफ. व्हाट यू नीड इज़ दैट इंसुलेशन. मैं as I tell people, you see, police is facing many problems, but if you have heart problem, that heart has to be attended to first, instead of कि muscles नहीं बंद हुई, मसल के बिना काम चल जाएगा, पर हार्ट अगर आपको ठीक से बीट नहीं कर रहा है तो आप कैसे काम करेंगे. And the heart of the problem is outside pressures on police all the time, day and night, 24/7. So, I mean, this is what I have to say very briefly. I mean, it's a very long subject. I could have gone on for another 2 hours, but I think you should have half an hour for questioning. बोलिए, जो सवाल हो आप पूछे. This is a book which I have published. I thought I must record whatever I have done in the since 1996. 96 से लड़ाई लड़ते लड़ते 4 साल उधर हो गया, 23 साल इधर हो गए, 27 साल मेरे रिटायरमेंट के इस लड़ाई में चले गए. जब और लोग गोल्फ खेलते रहे और बियर पीते रहे, मैं ये लड़ाई लड़ता रहा. So, I mean, those of you who are interested can get this book. It's freely available. It has been, if I were to read Shekhar Gupta's comments, Prakash Singh's name is synonymous with police reforms. Shekhar Gupta of print. His lone and tireless crusade of around 3 decades to end the British colonial system of policing is well known. Many of us have followed his almost Sisyphean battle against a practice that tends to substitute the rule of law with the law of rulers. It is a journey of an upright police officer. That is Shekhar Gupta. Others have also recorded. Now, your questions.
Namaskar, sir. It was indeed a Sisyphean battle, a long journey to be a backbone of nation building. So, like a big salute to you for that. I'm Sarthak Sharma. I just graduated from IIT Roorkee. And I would like to ask that despite these recommendations being implemented, is there a chance that the government can impose some sort of budgetary constraints or resource allocation consequences in case the police does try to go against the state? And also, like, would these reforms percolate to central investigative agencies like NCB, ED, CBI, which are now claimed to be state machinery puppets?
So about the first point, look, if the central government was serious, they could have imposed budgetary constraints. They could have said that modernization grants will not be given to you unless you do ABC, A, B, and C. But the central government itself is not serious. When the reforms were ordered by the Supreme Court, I went to the Home Minister of India. I gave him a draft letter. Yeah, on behalf of the Home Ministry, please send this letter to all the state chief ministers that these orders have been issued and we expect you to comply with these, and we'll extend your full cooperation in modernization of police force and this and that. The Home Minister was very sympathetic. He said, हाँ बिल्कुल हम issue करेंगे this that. But the bureaucracy shot down the letter. They prevailed upon him not to issue the letter. This is what, see, the bureaucracy in this country is a great stumbling block. I will give you another example of how bureaucracy scuttles. In late 70s, I made a representation before the Chief Minister as a serving police officer of UP that we should have Commissioner of Police system in UP. The Chief Minister agreed and he made a public announcement that yes, we will have Commissioner of Police in Uttar Pradesh. That was in 1978, I think. Public announcement. Mr. X, K.K. Bakshi, was the Home Secretary. No, Mr. Vasudev Panjani, who was another DIG, he was announced that he'll be the Commissioner of Police. So before introducing the Commissionerate, they asked the Commissioner designate, the serving State Minister Home and the serving Home Secretary to go around the country to places which had a running Commissionerate to study the system, come back and prepare the draft bill for UP. They go on a tour of various states. By the time they come back after a month or so, the proposal has already been shelved. The bureaucracy got it shelved. The bureaucracy is a great stumbling block, and you may be able to persuade the politician, but the IS lobby is fond of, I mean, there may be some IS officers here, I don't know. Anybody? No. Fortunately, we have no controversy there. So they want to remain their hegemony over police, their control over the police. In fact, and they persuade the politicians also to have it that way. So politicians, you can somehow get around. That's not so difficult. But this organized group, I mean, which I consider the strongest trade union in this country. Yes, it's the strongest trade union. You catch a corrupt IS officer, try to punish him. Oh, you will encounter a sea of opposition. The entire service comes to his defense. इसको मत पनिश करिए, ये है, वो है, फलाना है, ढिकाना है, ये इस कारण से हुआ, ये. There was a Joshi couple in Uttar Pradesh. Joshi, पति भी जोशी, पत्नी भी जोशी. Mr. and Mrs. Joshi were both involved in huge scandal running into somewhat 250 crores. Government said, Shivraj Singh Chauhan ने कहा इनको suspend कर देंगे. अरे, he could not suspend them for months and months. Ultimately, it took years before they were dismissed probably from service. The entire lobby comes to support. So budgetary constraint, you see, the central government came out once with a very good announcement that the Prime Minister in 2014, he came up with the concept of smart police. I was so enthused when I heard this concept of smart police. And I saluted the Chief Minister for this brilliant acronym which he had coined. SMART, S for sensitive, M for mobile, A for accountable, R for responsive, T for techno-savvy, SMART. It's a brilliant acronym. I said, भाई अगर ये सारी चीज़ें हो जाए तो फिर हमें और चाहिए क्या? Sensitive police भी हो जाए, accountable भी हो जाए, techno-savvy भी हो जाए, तो फिर चाहिए क्या हमें? But it remained an acronym only. आपको उन्होंने एक नुस्खा दे दिया और आपने सोचा चलो हो गया, पर हुआ तो कुछ नहीं. कम से कम आप, if you are sincere about it, you could have at least sent a letter to all the state governments that we want a state police, and for that you need to do A, B, C, D, E, F. Nothing of the kind happened. Just merely saying smart police means nothing. You have to follow that up with some positive action. That was not there. So budgetary constraint, the point which you raised, is a very strong weapon in the hands of the government of India, but it has never used that weapon to ensure that reforms are carried out. The other point was about ED and election cover. No, police reforms don't cover. But you see, about the CBI, there are instructions about how this director of CBI would be chosen. The idea is that he should show independence. But how much of independence they show is, again, there is some question mark over it. Even after a very careful selection where only the Chief Justice of India and the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition are involved, even then they tend to generally toe the official line. Generally toe the official line. Maybe in some cases, I don't know, I'm not aware of any cases where they may have taken panga with the central government. So that is happening. I mean, look, as I tell the police officers, the Supreme Court can give you institutional protection, but it cannot give you spine. That you have to have. And if you have the spine, you don't need even the Supreme Court directions. If you have the spine, you don't need. No, it's like this. Supposing 10 senior officers decide that we will not do the wrong things. We will only enforce the rule of law. कहाँ जाएंगे वो? कहाँ से DGP लाएंगे? अरे 1 को लिया, 2 को लिया, 3 को लिया, 4 को लिया, 5, 6, 7, 10 तो कह रहे नहीं, हम तो ऐसे ही काम करेंगे. The tragedy is that you remove one officer and there are a dozen lined up. नहीं sir, आप मुझको बनाइए तो सही, देखिए. I mean, I know of one officer who went to lobby his own case, and then he says, मैडम जी आप हमको बना दीजिए. मैडम जी थी उस समय पावर में, उत्तर अब आप देखिए मैं तो पार्टी वर्कर की तरह काम करूँगा. क्या ऐसे लोग हैं, अब क्या किया जाए? No, the point is, even when you have reached the highest position, what more do you want? What more do you want? I mean, it's something which is happening across the board, not only in police department. Today, this morning, I was talking to my son. I said, look at this coacher जो ICICI बैंक में थी. अरे भैया, कितने 100 करोड़ रुपए उसके पास होंगे, पर उसको 1000 करोड़ चाहिए थे. अरे कहीं तो यार तुम रुपया लेके खाओ, ऊपर जाओगे, क्या करोगे? मैं अफसरों से, प्रोफेशनल से मैं कहता हूँ, रुपया लेके ऊपर जाने का कोई तरीका हो तो बताओ. हमको तो नहीं दिखा तरीका. और हमने तो, मतलब आई एम नॉट ब्रैगिंग, हमारे पास हराम का 1 रुपया नहीं है, पर हमें तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं हुई पूरी नौकरी करने में. कोई दिक्कत नहीं हुई. हमारे बच्चे अच्छी जगह पढ़े, हमारे बच्चे आगे निकल गए. भाई आपको क्या पैसा किस बात के लिए चाहिए? अच्छा खाने के लिए चाहिए, हमने अच्छा खाया. अच्छा पहनने के लिए चाहिए, हमने अच्छा पहन लिया. डिसेंट तरीके से रहे, मतलब ठीक है, मतलब लेविश तरीके से नहीं रहे, बट डिसेंट तरीके से रहे, डिसेंट तरीके से सारी ज़िंदगी बिताई. पर अब तो असल में लोग चाहते हैं, द प्रॉब्लम विद द प्रेजेंट जनरेशन ऑफ ऑफिसर्स इज, एंड आई डोंट नो, दिस मे बी ए डिजीज़ अक्रॉस द बोर्ड, कि आप रहते तो हैं गवर्नमेंट सर्विस में, पर आप चाहते हैं कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर की जैसा रुपया आवे और ब्यूरोक्रेट जैसी शान हो. दोनों चीज़ें कंबाइन करना चाहते हैं बैठे. अरे भाई, सरकारी नौकरी इस गवर्नमेंट इज़ गिविंग यू मोर देन इनफ. अब तो मुझे पेंशन इतनी मिलती है कि मुझे समझ नहीं आता उस पेंशन का मैं क्या करूं. भाई 2 मियाँ बीवी कितना खाएंगे यार? 1.5 लाख रुपया आ जाता है. व्हाट डू आई डू विद दैट मनी? 1 लाख में बड़े मजे में, बड़े आराम से, अच्छी तरह से रहने से 1 लाख में काम चल जाता है. भाई 50,000 इज सेविंग इवन नाउ पर मंथ. मैं क्या करूँगा? एंड तो बहुत सारा, तब मैं तो चैरिटी में निकाल देता हूँ. 1 लाख से 5 लाख मेरा सालाना चैरिटी में चला जाता है. क्या, व्हाट डू आई डू विद द मनी? तो दैट आई सपोज, आई होप दैट आंसर्स योर सेकंड क्वेश्चन ऑल्सो. बोलिए.
Hello, sir. My question is, recently Criminal Procedure Identification Act was passed in the Parliament last year, and I want to know how do you see it as the kind of reforms that we need in future. And another question was that the government's plan was to integrate NAFIS and CCTNS, but still it hasn't been done. And
integrate CCTNS and
NAFIS.
हाँ.
Sir, but it hasn't been done till yet. and how do you see it? How do you see the government's plan of integrating them in future?
Well, the integration should take place, and I think the sooner the better. I think technologically, police has been slow. Technologically, police has been slow, and we keep on telling them that you need to generate more pace. In fact, I would say the income tax department and the railways, they have gone faster in introducing technology, and the technological challenges in future are going to be enormous. I mean, so many things which you are witnessing. Internet of Things. Now they say it will be something great, but Internet of Things also gives an opportunity to a criminal to break into your system. You are very happy sitting from Delhi, I can see what's happening in my residence at Lucknow. But if he breaks into that system, then you're gone. 3D printing, something great. But he is fabricating counterfeit weapons, counterfeit currency with that 3D printing. So whatever technology is available, the criminal is using it perhaps faster and in a more criminally productive way than you are using it to curb his activities. So technology is going to pose a challenge and also a huge opportunity. But one suggestion which I have given to the senior people, but I don't think it has caught the imagination of the bosses. See, we need to recruit some officers straight from IITs. सीधे आप आइए पुलिस में आइए, सीधे भर्ती हो जाइए डिप्टी एसपी. अबे ठीक है, जो अमेरिका चला गया वो तो अमेरिका चला गया, जो बाकी इधर उधर भटक रहे हैं थोड़ा सा सेकंड ग्रेड वाले, वी टेक देम इन द पुलिस. आई मीन यू विल बी गुड इनफ फॉर आवर पर्पसेस. वी नीड टेक्निकली savvy ऑफिसर्स. अब वो जो पुराना दरोगा जो आ रहा है वो तो खाली लाठी डंडा चलाना जानता है, और वो समझता है कि बस पुलिस का काम है डंडा मारो, उससे कबूलवा लो क्या अपराध किया, बात ख़त्म, और कहीं पैसे बना लो, अपना थोड़ा सा और काम बन गया. I think we need to change the kind of material that is coming to constitute the police force. We need to seriously think about it. Of course, I mean, I am told that the constabulary which we are getting, they are technically more qualified. Yes, I agree they are more qualified, but are they qualified enough to sort of to catch up with the criminals? That's the point. Criminals are doing it much faster. So मैं कहता हूँ ये BA पढ़ा आदमी, ये सब BA BSc पढ़ा आदमी हमें नहीं चाहिए, हमें तो IIT से लो तुम. At least have one section which is highly qualified and which can take them on their own terms. तो ये तो था आपका. फिर वो criminal procedure amendment, that's a step in the right direction. Let us see how it works out. Yes.
नमस्ते सर, मेरा नाम शिवम है और मैं भी मेरठ से हूँ. मैं फ़िलहाल सिविल सर्विसेज की प्रिपरेशन कर रहा हूँ.
किसकी प्रिपरेशन? सिविल सर्विसेज
सर.
सिविल सर्विसेज.
हाँ जी सर,
बेस्ट ऑफ लक.
आप थैंक यू सर. आपसे मिलकर आज बहुत अच्छा लगा सर. आपके आर्टिकल्स हम पढ़ते रहते हैं. इनफैक्ट आप जूलियो रोबेरो सर, ये ऐसे व्यक्ति हैं जिनको हम काफ़ी हाई रिगार्ड्स में रखते हैं उनकी इंटीग्रिटी के लिए. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन सर बेसिक पुलिसिंग को लेके था. पॉलिटिकल कंट्रोल अलग चीज़ हो गई, आपका इंफ्रा टेक्नोलॉजी अलग चीज़ हो गई. बट सर अभी 2-3 महीने पहले दिल्ली की तिहाड़ जेल में एक हाई प्रोफाइल मर्डर हुआ था तिल्लू ताजपुरिया का, जो गैंगस्टर थे. तो उसमें सर 2 CCTV वीडियो निकल के आए थे जिसमें दिख रहा था कि कैसे 10-20 पुलिस वाले थे लेकिन उनमें विल ही नहीं थी उनको रोकने की, और कैसे वो सरेआम मर्डर हुआ पूरी टीम के आगे. तो सर ये बेसिक पुलिसिंग में भी आज जो हम लैक कर रहे हैं, इसके पीछे क्या रीज़न है सर, और इस पर क्या काम हो रहा है?
नहीं, आपने बहुत सही सवाल उठाया. बेसिक पुलिसिंग, आपने जो मर्डर की बात की, हम तो कहते हैं पुलिस, मैं तो बार बार इस बात पे बेसिक पुलिसिंग पे मैं पुलिस अफसरों से बात करता हूँ कि भाई देखो, और बड़ी बड़ी चीज़ें तो बाद में होंगी, तुम पुलिस का स्टेशन का वातावरण क्यों नहीं सुधार सकते? मैंने पुलिस रिफॉर्म जब हुआ है 2006 में सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जजमेंट हुआ, तो मैंने सारे DGs को एक चिट्ठी लिखा कि ये रिफॉर्म तो होते रहेंगे, पर हम चाहते हैं कि पुलिस स्टेशन लेवल पे सुधार हो. द एम्बियंस एट द पुलिस स्टेशन नीड्स टू इम्प्रूव. देखिए, आप मैंने उनको उदाहरण दिया, जैसे आप एक अस्पताल में जाते हैं, अब घटिया भी अस्पताल हो, प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर भी हो, तो फिर आप जानते हैं वहाँ कुछ नहीं हो तो मरहम पट्टी तो लगा ही देगा, और कुछ तो हमको मतलब जो हमें चोट लगी है, जो तकलीफ़ है, उसमें से एक प्रारंभिक हमको थोड़ा सा राहत मिल जाएगी, वो इस विश्वास के साथ जाता है. मैं चाहता हूँ कि जब वो पुलिस स्टेशन जाए तो भी इसी विश्वास के साथ जाए। वो इस विश्वास के साथ नहीं जा पाता है, उसको डर है हमको 2 घंटे बैठाएंगे कि 6 घंटे बैठाएंगे, हमारी रिपोर्ट लिखी जाएगी कि नहीं लिखी जाएगी, हमसे रिपोर्ट में पैसा मांगेगा कि नहीं मांगेगा, हैं फिर हमको कहीं रिपोर्ट लिखते लिखते हम बिना कारण हमें मार न दे, कहीं हमको लॉकअप ने बंद फर्जी बात लगा के बंद न कर दे, हम औरत हैं तो कहीं हमारे साथ दुर्व्यवहार न कर दे। सारे शक दिमाग में रहते हैं एक जनसाधारण के। तुम एक ऐसा वातावरण बनाओ कि एक साधारण आदमी जब पुलिस थाने में जाता है तो इस विश्वास के साथ जाए कि यहाँ हमारे कष्ट का निवारण होगा, कुछ हद तक निवारण होगा, यथासंभव जितनी इनकी सामर्थ्य है, जितने इनके पास संसाधन है उसके अंतर्गत कुछ तो होगा। इसको करने के लिए मैं कहता हूँ कोई नेता कोई दखल नहीं देगा, कोई तुमको एक्ट की ज़रूरत नहीं है, कोई तुम्हें अतिरिक्त अनुदान की ज़रूरत नहीं है, पैसे की ज़रूरत नहीं है। ये काम तो तुम्हारे एटीट्यूड की बात है। अगर सही एटीट्यूड तुम्हारा हो गया तो ये परिवर्तन तो तुम कल से शुरू कर सकते हो। इस बात पे मैं बहुत जोर देता हूँ, पर अब मैं क्या कहूँ, मतलब या तो अफसर बहुत ज़्यादा कन्विंस नहीं होते हैं या नीचे वो प्रयास नहीं कर पाते हैं। मैं ये कहता हूँ मुझे को थोड़ी सी सफलता मिली थी, मतलब मैंने कटिंग रख रखी है उस ज़माने की, मतलब एडिटोरियल्स आए थे कि पुलिस अब पहले से ज़्यादा सभ्य है, इस तरह की बातें दैनिक जागरण में लिखी थी। और नवभारत टाइम्स ने बहुत अच्छा लिखा था, उन्होंने लिखा था उत्तर प्रदेश में प्रकाश की किरण। तो मतलब थोड़ा शुरुआत हो गई थी सभ्यता की दिशा में। पर दुर्भाग्य पुलिस विभाग का यह है कि एक कदम आगे कोई लेता है, फिर पीछे वाला अगला आदमी उसको 2 कदम पीछे ले जाता है। हमने बहुत सारे जो सुधार की कदम उठाए तो उसको हमने देखा कि मेरे सक्सेसर साहब ने आउट ऑफ जेलसी, आउट ऑफ कसेडनेस, जो भी हो, इसको भी रिवर्स करो, इसको भी क्या कहा जाए, ऐसे लोग क्या कहा जाए।
नमस्ते सर।
हाँ,
माय फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज हेट क्राइम अगेंस्ट so my question is hate crime against Hindus have increased not only in Bangladesh and Pakistan but also in India also. There are many pockets of mini Pakistan in India. So what is your take on this? How do you see it as a national security challenge?
देखिए हेट क्राइम से समस्या है, पर उसको एक सीमित मत रखिए। हेट क्राइम दोनों तरफ से हो रहा है, ठीक है, हिंदुओं के खिलाफ भी हो रहा है, मुसलमानों के खिलाफ भी हो रहा है, दोनों तरफ से हो रहा है। हेट क्राइम्स के खिलाफ का संज्ञान लेने के लिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है, कुछ मतलब कानून बनाने की बात है, पर कानून तो अभी बना नहीं है। पर देखिए हिंदुस्तान में जितना कानून है, अगर पुलिस चाहे तो उसको घुमा फिरा के वो हेट क्राइम वाले को लपेट सकती है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। मैं तो कहता हूँ पुलिस अगर संकल्प ले ले कि हमें सही काम करना है तो सब जितने विधान को छोड़ दो, हम कानून तो हम लगा देंगे, पहले उसको बंद कर देंगे, उसके बाद कानून हम बैठा देंगे कौन सा कानून जाएगा। तो हेट क्राइम के खिलाफ कानून बने या न बने, पुलिस अगर चाहे तो वांछित कार्रवाई कर सकती है। दुर्भाग्य है कि पुलिस कर्मी ये देखती है आजकल कौन सरकार बैठी है, हमारे स्टेट कैपिटल में कौन सरकार बैठी है, उस हिसाब से काम करना चाहती है उनको खुश करने के लिए। अब उत्तर प्रदेश में यही मुजफ्फरनगर बगल का ही ज़िला है ना, उसमें एक एसपी साहब से वो कांवड़ियों का पैर धोते उनकी फ़ोटो आ गई थी। शर्म आती, डूब मरो यार, तुम कहाँ से आईपीएस का नाम डुबाते हो। पर ऐसे ऐसे अफसर हो गए हैं। अफसरों की मानसिकता में में जब तक परिवर्तन नहीं आएगा कि हम कानून, हमारे सर्वोच्च जो हमारा कर्तव्य है वो है रूल ऑफ लॉ को इन्फोर्स करना। जिस तारीख को इस किताब में मैंने लिखा है अयोध्या के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, मेरे सामने ये डिलेमा था कि अयोध्या के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अब सरकार की बात माने या किसकी बात माने। तो मैंने कहा भाई, मैंने फिर बहुत अंतर्द्वंद मुझे हुआ, मैं इस निष्कर्ष पे पहुंचा, मैंने किताब में लिखा है, एज लॉन्ग एज आई एम वेयरिंग खाकी, इन्फोर्सिंग द रूल ऑफ लॉ इज़ द हाइस्ट रिलीजन फॉर मी। न मैं हिंदू हूँ न मुसलमान हूँ, कुछ नहीं हूँ, इन्फोर्सिंग द रूल ऑफ लॉ। क्योंकि अब अगर डीजी ये सोचने लगा कि मैं हिंदू हूँ तो मंदिर बनवा दूँ, कल को मुसलमान आ गया वो कहेगा यहाँ मस्जिद बनवा दो, सिख आएगा कि यहाँ गुरुद्वारा बन, ये मुसीबत हो जाएगी यार। जब आपने वर्दी पहन ली है, फिर जब आप उस समय आपको आपका सबसे बड़ा धर्म है आपका कानून को लागू करना अक्षरशः, ये नहीं कि नेता क्या कह रहा है या आपके ऊपर किस बात का दबाव। और ऐसा करने के लिए दिस इज़ व्हाट आई टेल पुलिस ऑफिसर, यू शुड बी प्रिपेयर टू सेक्रीफाइस। क्या दिक्कत है भाई, अरे नौकरी से निकाल दिए जाओगे और तो कुछ नहीं, तुम्हारी जान तो नहीं कोई ले लेगा। मैं तो खैर आतंकवाद क्षेत्र में जान भी देने के लिए तैयार बैठा था, पर और क्या चाहिए भाई। नॉर्मल वर्किंग में बहुत होगा सस्पेंड कर देगा, ठीक है, सस्पेंड बहुत लोग, मैं भी सस्पेंड होते होते बचा, मैंने आपको किस्सा बताया। तो वो तो उपनिषद में लिखा है ना कि मतलब सत्य के रास्ते पे चलना तलवार की धार पे चढ़ने के साथ, तो लहू तो बहेगा। तो अगर आप सच्चाई का रास्ता आपने अपना लिया है, ठान लिया है, तो थोड़ा सा लहू बहाने के लिए तैयार रहिए।
हेलो, नमस्ते सर
जी।
मेरा नाम वैष्णवी है। एज अ फॉरेंसिक स्टूडेंट एक सवाल है कि मैं अभी नेशनल फॉरेंसिक लैब भोपाल में थी, तो उसमें सर कुछ एविडेंस आए थे। तो उसमें है ना, जैसे फॉरेंसिक में कुछ क्राइम सीन इन्वेस्टिगेशन होता है, तो सर उसमें पुलिस वालों को ट्रेन नहीं किया जाता है क्या? मतलब कुछ भी एविडेंस है, कुछ भी कलेक्ट करके लाते हैं, तो उसमें वो ऑथेंटिक नहीं होता कि वही चाहिए था। और ये सवाल है। दूसरा सवाल ये है सर, हमें पढ़ाया गया था कि पुलिस एवं मानव अधिकार के बारे में, तो इसका सर कहीं ना कहीं उल्लंघन होते हुए दिखाई देता है, तो इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा।
हाँ, मानवाधिकार का उल्लंघन खूब होता है, मैं उसको मना नहीं करता हूँ, पर बस मैं ये भी कहूँगा कि पुलिस के मानवाधिकार की बात कोई नहीं करता। नरसिम्हा राव जब प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे, उन्होंने एक बयान दिया था, ऐसा लगता है, उन्होंने अंग्रेजी में कहा, इट सीम्स इन दिस कंट्री ओनली टेररिस्ट हैव ह्यूमन राइट्स। टेररिस्ट जब पकड़ा जाता है तो ह्यूमन राइट्स की उसकी सब बात होने लगती है। एक साधारण जनसाधारण की ह्यूमन राइट्स की बात नहीं होती, एक पुलिसकर्मी के ह्यूमन राइट्स की बात नहीं होती। हमसे कितना काम लिया जाए वो कोई नहीं सोचता कि भाई इस आदमी को भी त्यौहार अपने बीवी बच्चों के साथ बिताना है, इस आदमी को भी हफ्ते में 1 दिन छुट्टी चाहिए, वो तो कोई नहीं सोचता। हमको तो 24 घंटे रगड़े रहो। और आप मतलब कुछ कमीशन की रिपोर्ट्स हैं, कमल कुमार कमेटी की रिपोर्ट है कि भाई पुलिसकर्मी की ज़िंदगी ऐसी होती है कि आप अभी थाने से छूट के आए, घर आए, आप खाना खा रहे हैं, तब तक तुरंत आ जाता है कि नहीं भाई जो कुछ भी कर रहे हो भाग के आओ। तो खाना छोड़ा, बीवी को वैसे वैसे करके भागे और आधा खाना छोड़ के चले गए। इस तरह तो कैसे नौकरी, इस तरह आप हमसे नौकरी लेते हैं। मतलब न काम करने का कोई समय है, न छुट्टी का कोई दिन है, न त्यौहार का कोई छूट है। मतलब इट्स ए ट्रेमेंडस स्ट्रेन ऑन योर वाइफ्स इफ़ यू आर अ पुलिस ऑफिसर, ट्रेमेंडस स्ट्रेन, एंड फुल क्रेडिट टू द women who put up with their husbands.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
My name is Arya. Thank you so much for that lecture. So my question is regarding independence of police force, or at least, as you said, keeping them little away from the political will. But sir, you are a great officer. Not all officers are like you. At least when they are accountable to the political force, or the political force has some influence on the police force, the janta has some way of keeping a check, as in those people can be voted out or voted in. But once a police officer is in the bureaucracy, it's a permanent structure, and they will always stay there. So isn't it a better accountability mechanism if the political parties, political people in power have an influence on the police force?
No, they have this influence already, but unfortunately they are exercising this influence in a very vicious manner. I wish they were using this influence in a democratic manner, in a manner which would promote general welfare and which would lead to cleanliness in administration or improvement in governance. They are generally using it. मतलब आप अगर सेक्रेटेरिएट में जाइए, मिनिस्टर्स के पास जाइए, तो वो लोग भी परेशान हैं। कॉरिडोर में जितने लोग घूमते रहते हैं उसमें 70-80% किसी न किसी की सिफारिश के लिए जाते हैं, और सिफारिश के लिए इसलिए नहीं जाते हैं कि ही डिज़र्व्स इट, नहीं, उसको अच्छा थाना दे दीजिए। अच्छा थाना देने का मतलब क्या है? जहाँ ज़्यादा पैसे मिले, जहाँ ज़्यादा पैसे कमाने का तरीका हो। अब ट्रांसफ़र आपने कहीं दूर कर दिया, आपने किसी आदमी को आपने मेरठ से बागपत कर दिया, कहते हैं नहीं साहब मेरठ में रहने दीजिए। अरे यार, मेरठ से बागपत तुम्हारा कौन सा दूर है? मतलब जो ट्रांसफर्स के लिए जो रिक्वेस्ट आती हैं पॉलिटिशियन, द रिक्वेस्ट विच वी गेट फ्रॉम पॉलिटिशियन, द रिकमेंडेशंस विच वी गेट फ्रॉम पॉलिटिशियन, आई टेल यू 90% ऑफ देम आर नॉट calculated to promote good administration, and they are calculated to subserve somebody's self-interest. So that is where you have to take a strong line that no, this can't be done. This can't be done. पर यह है कि उसमें कुछ स्टेट्स ने तो ऐसा बना रखा है कि MLAs के इतने परसेंट रिकमेंडेशन माने जाएंगे, कुछ स्टेट्स में ऐसा बना रखा है कि MLAs के रिकमेंडेशन पे थानेदार तैनात होगा। अब ये सब, इफ दैट इज देन इफ द स्टेशन हाउस ऑफिसर इज ऑब्लाइज्ड टू द MLA, देन हाउ विल ही फंक्शन? You know, there are some states, I don't know, I may be out of date, but this kind of thing I have experienced. The MLA says that, all right, your SHO Kanpur Kotwali, you will give me 50,000 rupees per month. The MLA says, अगर आप मुझे नहीं दोगे तो मैं तुम्हें हटवा दूंगा. तो तुम तो भैया 10 लाख बना सकते हो, 50,000 हमें भी दे दो. जब 50,000 वो देगा तो वो कम से कम 3-4 लाख तो ज़रूर बनाएगा. So unfortunately, our politicians' character, their caliber, their intentions, they are all suspect. So political influence, yes, they must be under political control, and which they are. But where is this political control taking us? You know what happened in Mumbai. Paramveer Singh was used. He made this statement that out of about 100 bars in Mumbai, Greater Mumbai, he was asked to collect how much? 100 crores per month. This was the demand of the ruling party. 100 crores per month the ruling dispensation wanted from him. This is a statement on record by a person who was Commissioner of Police Mumbai. Mind you, not that he was a clean person. He himself was corrupt. I know him personally. He himself was corrupt. They need such corrupt officers. They need such corrupt officers. You see, once, I have done strange things in life. Once I submitted list of 10 most corrupt IS officers in India. Of UP. I submitted that to the Chidambaram. Nothing happened. I submitted a list of 10 most corrupt officers to Shashank Shekhar Singh, who was the most powerful man under Mayawati. He said, sir, बड़ा अच्छा है, अभी हम इसके खिलाफ एक्शन लेते हैं. 1 महीना बीत गया, 2 महीना बीत गया, 4 महीना बीत गया, कुछ नहीं हुआ. उसके बाद एक जर्नलिस्ट आता है मेरे पास, कहता है, सर आपकी लिस्ट सरकार के बड़े काम आई. मैंने कहा क्या मतलब? सर वो लोग तो ऐसे अफसरों को तलाशते रहते हैं, आपने बनी बनाई लिस्ट उनको दे दी, आपकी लिस्ट ज़रूर सही होगी, उन्होंने मान लिया. अब इनको ऐसी जगह लगाओ जहाँ से वो पैसा की उगाही करें और हमको पैसे दें और थोड़ा जो अपना बनाते हैं बनाते रहें. मायावती इन हर फर्स्ट टेन्योर, यू नो व्हाट वाज हर स्टाइल. बाद में तो थोड़ा मैच्योर हो गई, थोड़ा समझ अकल आ गई उसको. जब पहली बार मुख्यमंत्री बनी तो उसने, जैसे आपने पोस्टिंग हुई आपके, आप कहाँ जाना चाहते हैं, आप एसएसपी इलाहाबाद बनना चाहते हैं, ठीक है, आप एसएसपी इलाहाबाद बना दिया आपको. आप हर महीने, मैं पुरानी बात बता रहा हूँ इसलिए रेट बहुत कम था, अब तो रेट बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया होगा. आप हर महीने 50,000 पहुँचाते रहिएगा. नहीं, उसका तरीका दूसरा था. आपको हम एसएसपी इलाहाबाद बना रहे हैं, आप 10 लाख जमा करिए, पार्टी खाते में जमा, हमारे यहाँ जमा करिए, फलाने आदमी को दीजिए, तब आप एसएसपी इलाहाबाद बनेंगे. सर मैडम मैं कहाँ से लाऊंगा इतने पैसे, मेरे पास नहीं है, फलाना ठिकाना ये है वो है. अच्छा वो अपने आप से देखो, इनका इंस्टॉलमेंट बांध दो. इंस्टॉलमेंट, ये सही बात है, मानिए, ये मैं किससे नहीं सुना रहा हूँ. इंस्टॉलमेंट बन गया आपका. अब आप इंस्टॉलमेंट 50,000 देते रहे, आपने 1 इंस्टॉलमेंट दिया, 2 दिया, 3 दिया, 4वें में आप डिफ़ॉल्ट कर गए. उसके मालूम है 3 दिन बाद आपका ट्रांसफ़र ऑर्डर आ गया. तो इस तरह से, मतलब दिस इज द काइंड ऑफ पॉलिटिशियंस दैट वी हैव. क्या किया जाए इनसे? यू हैव टू हैव योर ओन कैरेक्टर. लुक, you can take shield behind such politicians and be corrupt, or you can decide, look, I believe, मैं इसमें विश्वास करता हूँ कि हर आदमी को एक चिराग जलाने की जिम्मेदारी लेनी है. एक चिराग तो आप जला सकते हो, आप दिवाली नहीं कर सकते, पर चिराग तो जला सकते हो कि मैं गलत काम नहीं करूँगा. आप मुझको जो सज़ा देना हो दे दो, मुझको पटक दो. वेजिटेरियन पोस्टिंग, 2 तरह की पोस्टिंग है, वेजिटेरियन, नॉन वेजिटेरियन. एक जहाँ पैसा बनता है, एक जहाँ पैसे नहीं बनते. आपको वेजिटेरियन पोस्टिंग दे दी जाएगी. तो दिक्कत क्या है भाई? सरकार इतना पैसा देती है कि तुम इज्जत से बड़े आसानी से रह सकते हो, बहुत आसानी से काम कर सकते हो, पर कम से कम अपनी आत्मा को बेचो तो मत. पर ज़्यादातर अफसर अब ये सोचने लगे, भाई इस बहती गंगा में हम भी हाथ धोएं, हम भी करोड़पति बन जाएं. मैंने जो लिस्ट दी थी उसमें लिखा था कि इन आईएएस अफसरों की, ये बहुत पुरानी लिस्ट है भाई, मुझे तो रिटायर हुए कितने साल हो गए, तो ये इन आईएएस अफसरों के टोटल एसेट्स 1,000 करोड़ के हैं, और आईपीएस अफसरों के 10 करोड़ के हैं. इसलिए नहीं कि आईपीएस अफसर ईमानदार है, इसलिए कि आईएएस अफसर को पैसा बनाने की ज़्यादा संभावनाएं हैं, इसलिए उसके पास 100 करोड़ है और इनके पास 10 करोड़ है. पर कोई एक्शन ना आईएएस अफसर के खिलाफ लिया गया ना आईपीएस अफसर. और मैंने लिखा था कि मैं अगर कहिए तो मैं इसमें गवाही इकट्ठे कर दूंगा, सबूत इकट्ठे कर दूंगा. नहीं, ये सब काम करना ओखली में सिर डालना था। एक अफसर ने मुझसे कहा, सर अब ये आप करते क्या हैं, इसी में से कोई आदमी 1 करोड़ की सुपारी दे दे आपकी तो मैंने कहा अब ठीक है, हम तो जितना जीना था जी लिया, अब हम जो होगा तो देखा जाएगा। नहीं, यू विल बी सरप्राइज। एक बार मैंने लखनऊ बेंच हाई कोर्ट के 4 जजेस की लिस्ट चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया को भेज दी, ये सब पैसे बना रहे हैं। A friend of mine said, sir, what is this you do? You will be hauled up for contempt. मैंने कहा, भाई अब मैंने चिट्ठी भेज दी, अब देखा जाएगा। I think the chief justice slept over it. उन्होंने कहा कि अगर इसमें अगर हम कोई सवाल जवाब करेंगे तो हो सकता है प्रकाश सिंह कुछ और खुलासा कर दें और प्रेस में चले जाएं, तो और इसलिए उन्होंने उसको दबा दिया, कुछ नहीं किया। तो I kept on doing, I mean, these reckless moves I kept on making in the hope that कोई तो आदमी एक्शन लेगा, पर मैं तो हार गया। IAS की लिस्ट बनाई तो कुछ नहीं हुआ, IPS की लिस्ट बनाई तो कुछ नहीं हुआ, जुडिशरी की लिस्ट बनाई तो कुछ नहीं हुआ। बट पर मैं कहता हूँ कोई फिर भी डोंट गिव अप योर आइडियल्स। आप अपनी तरफ से तो कम से कम आप 35 साल के बाद नौकरी के बाद आप अगर ये कह सकते हो कि मैंने 1 पैसा नहीं लिया है, तो यू हैव डन योर जॉब। और मैं तो कहता हूँ, सब अफसरों से कहता हूँ, भाई किस लिए पैसा बनाते हो। अभी मैं नेशनल पुलिस एकेडमी में गया था, सारे नौजवान लड़के थे करीब 150। मैंने कहा भाई कि वाई डू यू वांट टू मेक मनी। भाई मैंने नौकरी शुरू की थी, आपको विश्वास नहीं होगा, 350 रुपये से जी। वो IPS अफसर की तनख्वाह थी 350 रुपीज़ इन 1959। बट आई हैड नो प्रॉब्लम। सब हमारी वाइफ से पूछिए, हर चीज़ का दाम बता देंगे, इतना सस्ता दाम बताएंगे कि आपको विश्वास नहीं होगा। मैं तो दाम भूल जाता हूँ। फिर जब रिटायर किए तो डायरेक्टर जनरल BSF आई वॉज गेटिंग 8000 एंड आई यूज्ड टू थिंक इतना रुपया बहुत ज़्यादा है। और अब 8000 सिपाही शुरू हो रहा है, 8000 तो जमादार को मिल रहा है, पुलिस लाइन के जमादार को 8000 रुपये मिल रहा है जो स्वीपर है। तो मतलब जितनी तनख्वाह सरकार देती है उतना आपको जीने के लिए अच्छे एक डिसेंट लाइफ बिताने के लिए पर्याप्त है। अब सवाल यह है कि आप उसमें रहते हैं या अय्याश बन के रहना चाहते हैं। द चॉइस इज़ योर्स एंड द पाथ इज़ ऑल्सो योर्स। मैं तो कहता हूँ वेदर द इंस्टीट्यूशनल प्रोटेक्शन इज़ देयर और नॉट, इफ़ यू आर प्रिपेयर्ड टू सेक्रीफाइस यू कैन फॉलो द राइट पाथ एंड एंड योर करियर विद ए क्लीन कॉन्शियंस कि भाई ठीक है। वो धर्मराज आप लोगों ने देखा होगा, चित्रगुप्त को चार्जशीट बनाने में मुश्किल होगी कि भाई इस आदमी के खिलाफ क्या चार्जशीट बनाए।